Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of Across the Pitch on the AAT Sports Network. Today is Tuesday, May 26, 2026. It's hard to believe it's already almost June, but here we are. We are halfway done the MLS season. And to discuss the most recent match between Philly and Miami, we have Jose Nunez, who covers the uni with AAT Sports, the Free Kick Pod, as well as MLSsoccer.com. But we have our favorite reoccurring guest, Alex Windley, on the show to join us about this conversation to discuss Miami, discuss the World Cup, and everything else in between. But Alex, first and foremost, how are you doing? How's life been? If for the people who don't know who you are and don't know your coverage, tell us a little bit about yourself as well.
Yeah, so I'm currently a reporter, writer covering Inter Miami, occasionally some U.S. men's national team stuff. Speaking about that, I think they just dropped their roster, which was some interesting names on there. Maybe we touched on that. I don't know. But yeah, I cover soccer in America, mainly Inter Miami. I'm also a full-time college student, nearly graduated. So I split my time between university and covering Inter Miami and soccer and here in the U.S.
That's awesome. Yeah, we're looking forward to really picking your brain on this Miami team. Last year, you guys go out there, you win the ultimate prize, you get MLS Cup. For our side up here in Chester, Pennsylvania, we have a surprising season and get Supporter Shield, and we both leave the 2025 season with trophies, right? Nothing to complain about. But this year has gone quite different for both of us. On one end, you have a team in Miami who's again meeting all your expectations, top of the table type of stuff, and then for us, we are very much holding the wooden spoon firmly in our grasp. We haven't even gotten 10 points yet on the season. So the way both of our seasons have gone right now is just really interesting. We really want to hear your thoughts on it. But as we start this conversation, we had a very intense match on Sunday night. It was a 6-4 win for Miami. I don't think anybody expected the Union to take a 2-0 lead. I don't think anybody expected, at least on our side, for the Union to even score 4 goals. But we did expect to lose that match. So I just wanted to get your initial reactions on how Miami came out in that game, the fight you saw from Philadelphia, and then ultimately the 6-4 victory.
Yeah, honestly, I don't even know. Like, it was such a surreal game. Like, okay, I'll still start off at the beginning. Like, the Union. I think honestly, the Union is one of those bulky teams for Inter Miami because every time that the two teams meet, there's always some craziness in a good way happening. And this game, it didn't feel any different. I just figured Inter Miami would, I guess, for lack of a better term, play with their food before they actually went and got serious. And it showed the first 2 goals, the Union scored. And I honestly wasn't shocked because Inter Miami's defense this season has not been up to par, and it's been really poor. Honestly, anyone could tell you. So those first 2 goals, I wasn't shocked. And it was just, the Union taking advantage of Inter Miami's poor form with the back line. And then, naturally with Inter Miami's attack and Suarez having a crazy resurgence, and Germán Berterame finally coming into his form, they were able to eventually, and the Paul score at the end, it was his birthday too, so it was just a crazy game. But yeah, I think honestly, this Miami team reminds me of 2024, where they were just outscoring people for fun and didn't really give a rip about defense. So yeah, and the game showed, and watching it from the press box, it was, like the emotions, and even though people aren't supposed to be cheering, and I'm pretty strict about that myself, I was just kind of like, whoa, what's going on? But yeah, I think if any neutrals were watching, it was a fun game, but I'm sure for Union fans and for Inter Miami reporters and fans, it was a bit of a stressful time, considering that the team do want to, continue that race for the Supporter Shield as well.
Yeah, I think when Jose and Jillian Albany spoke together on the post-game show, the one word we used was overwhelming. And Jose, now it's been a couple days since our match against Miami, but do you still have that overwhelming sense? Like, that was just a lot to take in a 90-minute span.
Yeah, I mean, it was a record-setting pace, right? To have 8 goals in one half, especially the first half of a game, and just I guess it would have been just a few goals shy of the ultimate record of goals overall in one single MLS game. I think 1998 Colorado versus whoever it was had the record. But yeah, I still think I feel that way. I think that, for the neutral fan, that was or neutral watcher, whether you're press or a fan, that was a fantastic, enjoyable game. But if you're somebody who has to sit down and dissect this as granularly as we do, or sometimes in a more macro level, it was by far the worst defensive showing that you could ever have. And I even agree with some of those crazy, USMNT stan accounts to an extent of like, this is not the soccer you want to showcase about this league. This is not the sport that the way it's supposed to be played, where there's supposed to be a balance between defensive action and offensive actions. But when you really think about it, the amount of firepower, mainly on the Miami side, it kind of makes sense, right? That they should be scoring this level of or this amount of goals. Albeit, I feel like some of the better, if not more interesting goals came from the Union side on the night. So I know I could go on for another 10 minutes trying to break this down, but ultimately, yeah, I think it still remains a little overwhelming. And what a way to cap off the first half of the season, even if it's a loss for the Union.
Yeah, and I think one person we haven't even really mentioned, and I'm not even sure we've spoken to you about him yet, Alex, has been Kevin Sullivan. Obviously, all eyes are on Messi anytime he's in front of a camera, but Kevin Sullivan had himself quite a breakout game recently. He's obviously been getting more minutes, getting more starts, but I'm not sure. Is this your first time seeing Kevin Sullivan? And if so, what is your impression so far from what you've seen?
Yeah, he was brilliant. Honestly, I was arguably, correct me if you guys feel this is wrong, but the Union's best player of that game. It was incredible how, and like I spoke about Inter Miami's defense. Yeah, like the kid's so good, and he's 16, almost, what was he, almost 17, but 16 years old playing like that. Yeah, it's crazy the fact that if Inter Miami didn't have that firepower off the bench or starting, even I think Messi, he came off his with his hamstring, and still Inter Miami were able to score and whatnot. If Inter Miami didn't have that firepower, I do, just because of the defensive lapses, I do think the Union could have at least drawn that game if it was any different night. Honestly, that's how poor the defense is right now for the team. But yeah, that kid, he's like, I don't even have any words. Like, to be that young and to have that amount of skill and poise to be able to carve through one of the better, arguably one of the better teams in MLS. It's really impressive. I will say at 16, I don't know how many minutes he's playing, but I do feel like like a Lamine Yamal type of maybe are the Union overly reliant on Caban? I'm like concerned about like overuse, I suppose. I don't know, but you don't want to see a young talent get I don't want to like how a few years ago, like Lamine Yamal was, Barca overworked him, and then he ended up having a string of like being sidelined due to soft tissue injuries, and that's kind of my biggest fear with playing young players that much. And I know Inter Miami had that issue a couple years ago with a couple of our academy players, but that's the only thing where I'm like, I hope he's just fit because he's that good of a player. But yeah, he was brilliant to watch, and I'm looking forward to. As long as it's not against Inter Miami, looking forward to seeing him continue to grow and improve.
That's an interesting point you bring up, because I think and again, we're going to get into each of the team's first 15 games in a bit. But I think one of the biggest talking points in that conversation was the fact that we didn't see a lot of Kevin early on. It was a good stretch where he just did not get any minutes. And honestly, without much reason, we saw a time where he started against Club America in Mexico City, which is a daunting task for a 30-year-old, let alone a 16-year-old. Then he wouldn't play against Atlanta United, for example. So recently we've seen an increase in his usage. And that's a good point, though. I don't know, Jose, do you feel like maybe Kevin's now getting almost overworked compared to how we were on the opposite side of the spectrum only about a month ago?
No, I don't think so. I guess my tune has changed a bit about the whole thing. And with Kevin, he is going and doing some really fascinating things with against, I should say, grown adults, right? And he's doing this as a young guy, so that's impressive in itself. I do wonder, and I guess there was some commentary on this. What exactly does that partnership look like with his parent club now of Manchester City and the Union, in terms of, I think that there's a reason why he's playing more, and I don't think it's Bradley Cornell suddenly saying, yeah, we could really use him. I think it's a little bit of that, but probably mostly B, which is the parent club likely saying something and wanting him to play more minutes, because they could just yank him out and probably send him elsewhere where there's no issues with him being his age, or as soon as they could accelerate the whole thing, I would imagine. I don't know. I guess I'm a mix of both ways about his usage, but I do want to. There was somebody clapping at me on social media, which I respect. I appreciate it because it was respectful. But the whole idea of, this is the very best that America can produce, and sort of using FOBMOB ratings to display how maybe he has been average at best this season. And I don't think that people really see the entire context where, yeah, he might be whatever playing this game that this guy was doing and baiting me. So like, forgive me, but for taking the bait. But he may be displaying high sixes, low sevens in FOBMOB, but he's doing so on a wooden spoon team. That's incredible.
Right.
That is fascinating for a 16-year-old to be putting in those types of performances on a team that's obviously not up to snuff and up to pace with the rest of the league. By all means, continue to flash those numbers, because that means you're doing something right. You're one of the shining spots on what is a pretty dark period in the Philadelphia Union.
It's such a funny conversation. Obviously, not saying MVP caliber, but it's funny when you look at other sports and you think MVP, and you always think of team success as part of that. When it's kind of hard to gauge, like just because a team is undefeated, whatever, oh yeah, their best player must be MVP. But sometimes you look at these weaker teams who are just not well constructed, which the Union are not. They're not a well constructed team. It's like, yeah, he's the MVP of our team, maybe. But Alex, I'm a little curious though. How have the first 15 games gone for you guys? What is the big sticking points? Obviously, there's been some coaching drama as well. What is your thought so far on how Miami has looked?
Yeah, I think we started the team started the season on the wrong foot. 3-0 loss to LAFC on national TV was not ideal, and that led to a fan base reckoning where it's Inter Miami, so there's naturally high standings and whatnot. My words fail me, but there's high expectations here for the fans and the team, so that was obviously disappointing. And then going through that period in time where Miami just couldn't get a win, they weren't losing games, but it was more so draws against teams that they were expected to beat, and then naturally heading into the new stadium, appropriately named the new stadium, and so failing to get a win there until I think literally like 2 weeks ago, where they were able to get those first 3 points. Yeah, it's been for Inter Miami standards, I think people would love for there to be more consistency, but I think now, even under an interim manager, Guillermo Hoyos, arguably, I think if you look around fandom and supporters, you'd see that this is probably the best soccer Inter Miami have played the entire season. I know this sounds crazy considering they let up 4 goals the other night, but genuinely in terms of an attacking standpoint, I think the team looks a lot more fluid. Hoyos was able to incorporate both Suarez and Barrera into the starting 11, which was for me it's crazy in a good way, because heading into the season, Barrera is £15 million. $15 million. You expect him to be the sole lone striker with Suarez kind of backing him up and maybe getting some spot minutes and coming on in garbage time. If we need a goal, you have 2 strikers on. But to see them start together now and to play really well, Suarez is not only facilitating, he's also scoring. He's working well off of Messi, and Barrera, he's the younger striker out of the pair, so he can press, he can make those runs in behind, especially with today Allende out with what looks to be like a knee tendonitis issue where he's gone to some doctors in Spain to get that fixed out, so he's been out for quite some time. But yeah, now and Hoyos obviously is staying on until Miami can get a new manager in. It's coincidental that Pep left Manchester City. I don't think that he's coming here, but it's just funny how that may work out. I don't know. That's not me reporting. It's just me being silly. But yeah, I think Hoyos, he's done a solid job in terms of the attack and getting his expensive player on the pitch and working well with what the team already had. And even incorporating, this new system where Messi's playing as true 10, where he doesn't necessarily have to track back as much because he has a midfield 3 of, Rodrigo de Paul, Segovia, Telesco Segovia, and Yannick Bright. So Messi's literally just free to score and facilitate, and it's been working. And I think the only downside here is the defense, and we saw against, the Union, which was honestly a fun game, but, I don't think, 10 goals scored between both of the teams was a great defensive showing, but still, I think heading into this World Cup break, Miami, I think they're on like a 4-game win streak. I think that's, right where the team wants to be considering the early season struggles.
Yeah, I think you've had also like 17 goals in the last five games or so. It's just unbelievable clip. One question I actually have here. I know you were a big fan of Drake Calendar when he was the goaltender.
Mm.
And I'm curious now with St. Clair. I was obviously he comes from Minnesota. I think he had 6 seasons there. With the defense being as bad as they've been, is it? I mean, how do you rate St. Clair? How do you judge his performances? Considering there are times where he just left out to dry.
Yeah, and I think a lot of honestly, I think a lot of fans are harsh on him, and I'm inclined to defend him a little bit, like I did. I wrote this one piece on Berterame like a few months ago, saying that some players just need time to get acclimated and to get settled off the field so they can perform on the field. And with Berterame now, he's performing now, so I suppose that's the same with St. Clair. And I know with goalkeepers, they don't get a lot of grace because, heck, Miami can win the game 6-4, but, Dane, he let in, 4 goals. And, people might not necessarily look at the defense as a whole. They'll see, oh, goalkeeper let up 4 goals, but they won't understand, hey, one of the goals happened because, Gonzalo Lujan or Mikael left open space, which didn't really give Dane a lot of you help defensively, so the goal was inevitable because his defender wasn't there. And I remember one of the goals that the Union scored. Dane initially got the first save, and any other solid back line, they would parry the ball away, the first save that he got. But the rebound was right in front of a Union attacker, so they were able to tap it in. So stuff like that, that's not something that sure he should have maybe done better, but in a back line that's a little bit more cohesive, the defender would have been right there to clear the ball out, and Dane would have been a hero. So I think, I try to give Dane some grace. He did come to Inter Miami because it's a World Cup year. He's going to have eyes on him. He wants that starting job for Canada. So, I'm inclined to give him some grace. And I'm sure once, post World Cup and everyone's back and a little bit more settled, I think, and he's even learning Spanish, which is, kudos to him. But I think he'll improve. He wasn't goalkeeper of the year for no reason, and I think it's only a matter of time before he becomes completely settled.
Absolutely. Now, of course, not everybody watching this show will be a Union fan or a Miami fan, maybe somewhere in between. Obviously, we're covering a couple of squads here. So, Alex, I think you summarized what Miami has done so far perfectly. Went from coaching to player acquisition and player movement, et cetera. Jose, I would love for you to kind of just give your 2 cents here on how the Union have done so far in the first 15 games, because I have strong opinions, but again, I'd love to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, the Union have been obviously underperforming, but I think that the bar was set so high, and I think over the last week or so, let's say 2 weeks, the press conferences and the way that Cornell has talked, and the not so subtle hints and also pretty subtle hints, unless from behind the scenes or have an idea of what's going on behind the scenes, you kind of don't really understand. But like the reality, it feels like maybe they let go of 1 or 2 of those older pieces too many. Where should Glesnes have stayed? Should Kai Wagner have stayed? I don't think Kai was it. I think Jakob Glesnes being the ultimate piece that, like, had he stayed, maybe things are a little different, because then you're not, hoping that Oweitu Makanya is the guy, right? And having to also introduce a 20-odd-year-old center back into the league. And I don't know, I found it really interesting that during the preseason, they went from, welcome Sari Larson to, hey, you're part of our leadership council. It's like the dude probably doesn't even know half the players' names, and he saw it suddenly being tossed into being a leader of the group. So I think that the first 15 have really illustrated that. And, sure, could they have kept more pieces? Of course, but you can't be mad at a Ty Barivo to go from making $810,000 to making 190% more out in DC United with a $2.3 million salary. Like, you can't be upset about that for the guy. But ultimately, I think that this first half of the season is really telling of a team that is in shaky ground. Is it necessarily misalignment in terms of what they thought about the players that they brought in? I'm not sure. Is it more telling of a team that maybe needs some more experience to bring along some of those players? Likely. I think that might be it. But just as you kind of identify that, or I think that that's the issue, they go into an international break that's 2 months long. Players don't go back until June 15th. And sure, they might treat it as a second preseason, but at that point, they're probably going to offboard Danley, Jean Jacques. They're probably going to offboard away from Makanya. I personally don't buy into them. I personally have done no research, but potentially offboarding Lukic as well, with interest from England and Spain over the last 24, 48 hours.
Yep.
That's three pretty big players that if you're offboarding, you're going to have to onboard somebody else to come in there. And again, Bradley's comments right after the match kind of sum up the entire first half of the season, where you have a team that is lacking depth, which he was blunt about, but then also made it very clear where, once you start letting go of players who have been around the block once or twice, meaning experience, you kind of see this pretty big gulf or delta between experienced players and youth academy kids that are being tossed into playing a man's game, which is good because they'll learn from it, but it's really good if you actually own the kids. They don't own Kevin Sullivan anymore, right?
Right.
Sure, they have Frankie Westfield and Malik Jakupovic and Kellen LeBlanc, which again, congratulations to him for earning his short-term contract and being tossed into the first team roster for the first time ever. But these first 15 have shown a lot of that, and I'm intrigued. Right, continue to say it, but Ben Olsen said it best when I was writing about the Houston Dynamo. He and the Dynamo are gonna literally consider those 2-3 weeks leading into the second part of the season as another preseason. That playing games and practicing two-a-days and bringing players in to get acclimated. I just wonder if the Union, at what point do you call a spade and say, all right, let's reset and set ourselves for the 27 short sprint season, and then for even a better start 2028 when we go into the new calendar year. When do you make that call? I don't know, but right now it certainly feels like even with this expanded playoff picture, there's not much to get out of this.
Yeah, well, I think we're still 11 points out of the last playoff picture. Last time I checked, which was Sunday afternoon, so maybe things have changed. But I think you bring up a lot of great points, Jose. I think a lot of people are quick to blame coaches when things go south. I mean, we saw what happened with Wilfred Nancy out in Celtic. We saw, didn't Neville just get fired today or yesterday?
Yeah, yesterday. Yeah.
Yesterday, we've obviously had Columbus's coach Rydstrom, Javier Mascherano. You mentioned Alex as well. I think a lot of fans want Bradley Cardinal gone. But at the same time, I don't know if any one of the coaches I just mentioned that got fired could fix the problem that we currently have right now. I don't know what coach out there could fix the problem we have now, because it comes down to roster construction. And I think it's a great argument. What do you do with this very long break? Do you hit the restart button now? I'm not sure. Obviously, the Ernst Tanner's coming back into his position as of June 1st. That could be a pretty significant day with some news. We'll find out exactly what happens after that date. But historically speaking, the Union have done very poorly after breaks. And I think collectively 99% of fans are so excited for this break to happen. They can't get any worse after the break. We can't go on a decline. Now we can only go up, or hopefully only go up afterwards. But Alex, I'm kind of curious what your thoughts are on this extended break. Obviously, you guys are doing much better than we are. So how does this break change the way you guys approach the second half of the season?
Yeah, so first, I think they're going to attempt to shore up the defense. I know Fabrizio Romano has been reporting, and Michelle Kaufman from the Miami Herald has been reporting about a potential Casemiro signing over say post-World Cup. I don't know. Well, Casemiro, first of all, a great player for Manchester United. I know he's retirement. I think he's only 32, but he'll if this move does come to fruition, I think he'll be a great signing. I don't know who for in terms of that midfield three is finally starting to gel with DePaul, Bright, and Segovia. So I'm not sure who gets left out there. Probably Yannick Bright, which is unfortunate because he's a great player and has been probably. Oh gosh, I hope I don't get jumped for saying this. Probably Inter Miami's best midfielder. Because without him, a lot of the defensive tracking back doesn't, happen. DePaul's, wants to get forward, and that's good for him. He's a great goal scorer. Same thing with Segovia, but I think Casemiro will likely be heading to Inter Miami if the roster mechanisms. I'm still not sure how it's going to figure out if that permits. That will happen. So I think that's the first move Miami will try to do is shore up the defense, and then obviously the managerial situation. I think, like I mentioned earlier, Hoyos has done a good job. The defense is still leaves defense to be desired, but I think if they can't get who they want or to get on the touchline or one of their targets, signs with another team, I do think maybe Hoyos does see out the rest of the season, and then you'll have next year, like you guys mentioned earlier, the transition from the summer calendar to the fall to the new calendar change.
Yeah.
I think maybe Hoyles just takes it there, and then that summer heading into the fall schedule change, maybe they use that summer to go after another I don't know, manager, maybe from Europe, I don't know, South America, who knows, but I think that's Miami's main priority, showing up that defense at this rate. They're not, Champions Cup that dream's done this season. There's Leagues Cup, obviously, and I think with this Casemiro move, I think Miami could hopefully. They're looking at another MLS Cup run, so let's see what goes from there. But I think Miami's main priorities are showing up that defense, getting Casemiro over the line, and then hopefully getting a permanent manager. So, busy time for Jorge Hamas, David Beckham, and company. But the team wants to win, so I think they'll get it done eventually.
Must be nice having a team that wants to win. I jokingly say that because for us, I think, as Jose perfectly put it, a lot of fans are expecting players to be sold over the summer window. I mean, one player you didn't mention, Jose, but I think Frankie Westfield over the next calendar year, maybe 2 years at the most, probably out the door as well. And there's a lot to consider and worry about. But let me ask you though, Alex, is there a scenario in your mind, do you think that maybe they don't change managers? Is it MLS Cup victory this year at all maybe swaying that needle, or is it something that you think was probably set in stone?
Yeah, I think honestly, like I said, I think Hoyles has done it's just defensively. I think the attack, he's, I don't know, like a striker whisperer. He's gotten them to play so well, and I think you can ask any Inter Miami fan in terms of the offense. It's been probably the best it's ever been since. Dare I say, late last season, where they went on a crazy tear to win MLS Cup. So I don't know if Hoyles will be that permanent guy. I don't know, but I think Inter Miami managerially, they've been so unstable. Like, I don't know, they've gone through a manager dang near every season they've been existing. Like the Alonso, Filmelfo, like it's genuinely it's if the team hasn't won trophies or didn't bring in Messi, like this would be like a Chelsea level of manager musical chairs. It's genuinely getting a little ridiculous. But so many managers. But I do think that this time, I think the ownership wants to do their due diligence and bring in someone who could be a long-term, which every manager, like Javier Mascherano is supposed to be the long-term guy, but then look what happens. But I don't know. But I think they're going to hopefully get in a manager who can lead this Inter Miami team in Messi's last few years as a professional player, which sounds crazy to say. His last few years in terms of, they just want to succeed, win now mode, essentially. So they're probably going to try to get someone in who could do that. And whether it's long-term or not, I don't know, but it'll be a manager that hopefully has a little bit better defensive minded tactics compared to Hoyle so far.
I think it's an interesting point you bring up with the long term. I think, Jose, you've been pretty vocal about it, more so but the Messi news and the Apple news first started, about what is the long term picture? What does post Messi look like to Miami? I mean, how do you feel in terms from a coaching perspective? Do you try to hit the home run just to win now? Do you agree with Alex in that sense? Or is it something that you're thinking like, listen, he's still, I don't know how old Messi is, 36, 37, maybe a little older than that at that point? I forget now.
38, I believe.
38. God, he's a young guy, right, Jose? He's young at
38. He could be part of my 35 plus league that I'm going to tonight. Yeah, of course.
So, I mean, how do you feel? What do you, as from an objective person, how would you view where they should look for a coach, or maybe the plan?
Yeah, I think speaking Spanish is part one, and probably the biggest part of that team. But I don't know. I don't think anybody's foolish enough to not think that Messi has a sway on who coaches that team, at least for now, right? I'm actually surprised that uh, maybe there haven't been more connections with former Barcelona coaches, whether they're assistants or. And sure, Alex, I know you joked about Pep Guardiola, but of course,
Yeah,
I think he's well out of the picture. But
yeah.
I'm surprised that there's no more linking with that. I don't know. Inter Miami's in a spot where it is very much a win now, right? You have what is going to be undoubtedly, in my opinion, the best player to ever play net right now in our lifespan. Obviously, you back up. You have Maradona, you have Pelé, you have Socrates, all those other guys who played across the decades. But right now, Messi. So you got to take advantage of it. And on a commercial side, you got to take advantage because once he's gone, like that's you're not going to be selling football stadiums, unfortunately, as much as MLS would like to think that they are. But I think it's a win now, and you just figure out Messi. Who do you like? That's gonna make these pieces work,
Mhm.
even if defense is optional for more people than just you. Who do you think that you want? Right? It has to be Messi approved, and that's just the reality of it. It may not be the reality of that longtime Inter Miami fans and even Inter Miami folks that report on the team and have reported from the get go, like you have, Alex. You've seen this team just shift from, I don't know if it's fair to call it a nice and humble operation to what it is now, but certainly a very different Inter Miami when you were there in those makeshift press boxes and their makeshift stadium before they moved into this, what by all accounts is a very beautiful facility, I've heard. So for now, I think it'll just continue to be a Spanish-speaking Argentine that does press conferences only in Spanish, or just a Latin American person, and that's about it. But come 2-3 years, once he goes, then maybe a little different. But for now, you just gotta put up with what is served to you, not what you get to choose.
Yeah, I think Jose, that's a great segue into the next part of this conversation. Obviously, Alex, when we first started talking to you years ago, one of the big things was like, well, how are things going to change now that Messi has all the eyes on it? It's harder to get access. It's there's going to be more reporters there from national media, that kind of stuff. One of the big talking points of the last probably couple months has been the Franco Panizo story. So obviously, you've worked side by side with him, I'm sure, in the box media, in the press box over the years. Any thoughts on the story and what has developed now nationally? I believe they were in Axios, right, Jose, and the pretty, you know, reputable website there. So, what are your thoughts, Alex, on Franco?
Yeah, it was an interesting thing. I honestly, I didn't know the details of why they were withholding his credentials, but I think at the end of the day, whenever we go to apply for credentials, Inter Miami does have a, like a little blurb saying that they do reserve the right to deny credentials based off a list of stipulations that they have, and you know,
Every team does.
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, like you said, every team does, and so I from just an educated guess, maybe Franco did step into one of those stipulations that the every MLS team has and didn't like. So I mean, I yeah, and the rules are rules, but he was in the press box the last couple last game actually. I was able, he was there and everything seemed fine. So I don't know what went on, and maybe as the time goes on, and or maybe if Franco wants to talk about it, maybe he'll reveal. But yeah, I'm like I said, every MLS team has a list, and maybe he was in violation of that the those stipulations. So yeah, I think at the end of the day, I think having everyone kind of push him. Like I saw a couple beat reporters, kind of fly his flag a little bit, which is understandable. Freedom of speech, freedom of the press, and unless you want coverage from everyone to grow the league. But yeah, I don't know what happened, but like Jose, you mentioned, like every team has just a list of things that you're not supposed to do. Maybe he was in violation of that, but at the end of the day, he was back, and it does appear to be water under the bridge now. So.
Yeah, it's great, Jose. Any thoughts? I see you smirking over there.
No, I listen. He and I and Alex, I think you too, right? With NASR, the soccer writers group, being part of it and whatnot. I appreciated that they went up to bat for him. I must admit, I don't necessarily personally agree with some of the reporting he does. I personally, and Mike appreciates this about me, I think. I know I've talked to Alex about this behind the scenes too, where like, I don't get involved with the players' lives, right? Like there's so many stories that I get told that I just choose not to report because it doesn't help anybody. I'm not here to ruin lives or paint a different picture of players. Obviously, if they're committing a crime or something, that's a different story. But the reality is that like players are still human, right? They're as human as the next person. They're just genuinely better than most people at playing soccer, and that's about it.
Right.
They're just as human as you and I and all of us listening and watching. So I mean, the amount of stuff that I could write and post, etc. I mean, like when you remember this, Mike, when the finally was getting out that Alado was just you know not showing up to practice on time and
Oh
having this
yeah.
attitude, whatever. It's like that had been happening from probably week 2 or 3. So like I had been known for a while, at least within my immediate orbit. I know I made you aware, I made others aware. So it's like, hey, this is what I'm hearing. But like obviously I have no interest in posting about it because I'm not into that. I don't like ifs, buts, and maybes. I deal with absolutes, and if it
Right.
can't be quantifiable or and fact checked, I don't get involved. Right? Like I have no desire in doing so. The way I only report transfers that I know are going to happen because ink is dry, or very close to being dry, and I think people appreciate that. So Franco subscribes to the more I mean the way he was reporting the Rodrigo de Paul stuff with him going to his girlfriend's concert while being potentially injured. It's like, okay, like Franco, do you know that the team didn't give him permission? Do you
Right.
know that he didn't that like do you know that he did not communicate with the team? Yes, no. I didn't ask him, but that's a very valid question to ask him, right? Did you know that he wasn't supposed to be there? Like what is the point of this post outside of being TMZ? And again, I just don't subscribe to that. So, but that's not to say that the dude doesn't do good work. And my goodness, that's not to say that the guy hasn't been busting his butt, right? Because I know I joked with you, Alex, but like very comical that he gets this shadow ban just a few, if not a year, maybe less than when he got the plaque for having perfect attendance to Inter Miami games. Like that is comical. I even joked with Alex, like someone should just print out a fake plaque and put it in the media room that says the Franco Panizo media room
Yeah.
and just like see how long it takes for someone to notice. But
Right.
I've been rambling on and I'm a few ways about it. Freedom of speech, of course, report what you want to report, make sure it's accurate. Bless you. I personally won't report whatever and everything I hear because there's just no purpose. It doesn't really advance anything. So yeah, uh, happy that he's back. I suppose. I don't know how many people missed him, but happy he's back.
I think it also touches on an interesting point that we get a lot of questions on. See that with Miami, they're doing great, so we don't get these. Maybe you don't get this type of harassment, but we get the comments from fans. Why aren't you asking harder questions? Why aren't you grilling Bradley Carnell, et cetera, et cetera? And I think when you're covering a team and you get that kind of access, there's also like that fine line you walk about what's the appropriate time to ask something, when's the appropriate time to ask something. So I mean, I don't know. I'm not going to share my 2 cents on the Franco Paniza story, but there are times where I think some of my fans are just too harsh and they don't understand that there's just this weird dynamic. Go ahead, Jose. I
like
hear you.
like Mike and Alex, you have to watch this. Mike, you should send it to Alex, if not the YouTube link to it. But like maybe don't ask Bradley Cornell after a 6-4 loss how he's feeling as the very first question. Like, hey Bradley, how are you doing? Like, gee, I don't fucking know. I'm feeling terrible. I just lost. Like, what's the point of asking? Like and Mike is right. Like, I think that there's some. I don't want to say decorum, but there's something to be said about like, is this the right time to ask the question, or could I ask something better?
Or poke
Could I
something.
ask?
Right.
Yeah, could I ask something different? And does it really make sense? Uh, I know I've had, I think, a much better relationship with Bradley Cornell as of late, but it wasn't always. Like I
Yeah.
uh, remember asking, Andrew Rick had gotten a start. It's like, Bradley, where's Andre? Jose, can we just, like, I got a very snippy short. And she's like, okay, how about this? And I don't know. It's not to be a pushover, but it's also being thoughtful about how and when, and
Right.
more about the how than the when,
Exactly.
realistically.
Yeah, I just texted you that video, Alex, so you can enjoy that after our show. It's very amusing. But I think another topic of conversation to discuss is not only the reporters and how we cover the team, but the fans and how they support the team. And once again, Miami and Philly are very much on the opposite sides of the spectrum here. However, there's still drama either way, whether you're winning or losing. So, Alex, I was kind of curious, if you could tell people what the hell's going on down there with the Miami fans. I've heard, a short bit of what's online, but I would love to hear just your impression of what's going on down there with the fans.
Well, I think this kind of has to go back to honestly, we can argue the beginning of the season when the team lost 3-0 to LAFC. I think that was kind of obviously not the right way to start the season. You want to win, and it was national TV. It was a bad loss. I think every poor result since then, I think La Familia felt a little bit. The players are frustrated. They want to win. These guys are winners. They want to win. So when they leave the pitch without clapping the fans, I don't think it's about the fandom, and more so about, hey, we don't want to face our fandom, our supporters, with these bad results. So I think that kind of just started from there, and then you move into the new stadium, and then you don't win for your first couple of games there, and then it's the same thing, like I said just now, about how you don't want to face that with draws and losses. You don't want to face that with your fans. And so the players are thinking, hey, the fans deserve better. We're not going to go clap when it's not, deserved. And in the player, in the supporters' minds, they're thinking, oh, we got snubbed. We're here, giving our money, etc. Supporting the rain. Showing up at 12 noon when the game's at 8 o'clock to load up these tifos, tailgating all day in the hot Miami crazy weather where it's thunderstorming at 2 p.m. and then it's blazing hot an hour later, and the fans felt some type of way about it. And I think that Orlando loss, where they gave up 3 goals, they blew like a 3-1 lead, 3-0 anyway, but they lost the game. I think that was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back, where, and you guys saw the last couple of weeks where La Familia had, the game after that, they coincidentally, it was against Phil Neville, who's an ex-Inter Miami manager, and they also protested against Phil Neville when he had his poor string of results for Inter Miami. So it was a crazy sort of full circle moment how that happened. Anyway, but against the Timbers, they protested. They weren't there. They weren't clapping. And then they had that Argentine chant, which my Spanish is improving, but I think it was sort of, I don't want to say derogatory, but just something like, hey, players, I don't know, just something bad that, Messi took offense and DePaul. And I think if you see videos from that time, you'll see Messi pointing to them like this and saying what's going on, because it was a chant that, it implies that, the club's going through a crisis. But Inter Miami, they weren't losing it. They were just drawing, besides the Orlando result, but they were just drawing games, which was, for Inter Miami's level of expectations, that's not good enough. So I think it was just a ball of confusion where the players were confused because they didn't want to clap when the results are poor, but the supporters, they want that recognition. So I think it just came to a head against the Timbers, and the fans just wanted more. And I have my thoughts on this, and I do feel for the fans, and I'm in contact with a couple of supporters groups to just get a feel for them, see how they're doing. And I do understand their frustration, but at the end of the day, that I don't think the team could. Sure, they could be top of the East, but I think that the recent winning streak, I think you would think that they're losing every game and not playing well. You can argue maybe they're not playing well defensively, but they're out here scoring multiple goals, and they finally got that win at home like 2 weeks ago, and everything is looking up now. And you have 39-year-old Suarez scoring a hat trick, and I'm curious to see if Uruguay calls him up. I don't know if that'll happen, but and it was just a crazy time. And I don't know if you guys saw, I reported like a couple of days ago that after the game, the team did go over and clap. So that's kind of the end of the saga there. And they did have some back and forth conversations between the ownership group, the players, and La Familia. So it seems to be, pretty chill right now. But the entire saga was just honestly, I think it was just fans wanting to feel a little bit more appreciated and the players being frustrated that they weren't getting results for the fans. So it was just kind of, hey, we just got to talk this out. We're all miscommunicating here, which is what happened. And I think everything's good to go now.
I have so many thoughts. Jose, you're trading like I have so many thoughts, especially as a Philly fan. Jose, I'll let you go first though. Your thoughts.
And no, I have nothing to share other than it seems kind of stupid, and I don't want to drag this into an hour-long conversation because I do want to be mindful of time and getting back to my family. So all I'll say is that this just sounds incredibly stupid, and I get it. Fans should have more ownership of the clubs. I get that, but this genuinely feels like a temper tantrum. And even in one of the letters, if I recall reading, is like, we're gonna be the child that doesn't give up until it gets what it wants. It's like that's a pretty rich thing to put into writing, but alas, I don't know. Mike, you can take it away.
No, I do want to save a couple minutes to talk about the U.S. men's national team. Obviously, the roster just got released, so we'll talk about that in a second. But really quick, I mean, just for clarification, Miami is 9-4-2, 31 points, and they're 2 points behind Nashville. So I view it from two ways. I can appreciate the fans because in Philadelphia, the Sons of Ben are quieter than a mouse right now. Mm-hmm. River End is quieter than the mouse. River End has been quiet for a while. I look at teams and fan bases like Cincinnati, Austin, Portland, Miami. I can keep going down the list of environments that are better than what we see at Super Park. The Super Park atmosphere has been very quiet, whether they're winning or losing. Even when they're winning, it hasn't been the same energy that maybe we had back in 2022 and maybe even earlier than that. So I can appreciate that the fans are upset by something. They spoke up, they protested, they weren't afraid to get in quote unquote in trouble or ruffle some feathers. I can appreciate that. They have every right to do that. At the same time, you're 9-4-2, you have 31 points, you're second place in the Eastern Conference. I would trade MLS Cup for a lot of things. I would trade a Leagues Cup title. I would trade a Supporters Shield for a lot of things. So I do feel like it's a bit entitled. That's what I'm going to say. I can appreciate it, but at the same time, it's like you're in second place. Let's take it easy a little bit. But in terms of trophies and competitions, obviously the World Cup's not too far away. As you can see from if you're watching on YouTube, I have my Mexican national team jersey on. So, Alex, your thoughts on the World Cup, your thoughts on the U.S. men's roster team that just got released. Obviously, Jose, 4 former Union Academy players in the roster. Slow clap for them. Awesome stuff. But, Alex, let's finish up this conversation with a fun chat. World Cup thoughts. Go ahead.
Yeah, honestly, I think I'm just looking forward to seeing the tournament in the U.S. When the last time, gosh, I hope I don't age you guys, but the last time the tournament was held, it was in '94. I was not born yet, so yeah, I'm just really excited as a.
we were 3.
Yeah, yeah, as a soccer fan, I'm just excited to see this spectacle, even though I don't know if it's, in Miami. We can talk about the individual cities. I don't know what's going on with Philly in terms of the fan fest. It's a bit of a bit of a mess down here. But, regardless, I'm looking forward to just seeing. I will not, as an aside, I will not be covering the tournament. The credentials were terrible to get in. I didn't even attempt to because I've had so many colleagues try to get in, and it was just, a mess. But that's another conversation. But as far as the U.S. men's national team goes, hopefully they go and can get out of the group stage. I'm just a little worried about the midfield. Honestly, I think they're the only holding midfielder there is Tyler Adams. The rest are either attacking midfielders or box-to-box midfielders. So heaven forbid there's an injury to Tyler, and then who's going to play the deep lying midfielder role. McKennie, I don't know. I think he's better getting forward. If you watch him for Juventus, Gio Reyna's in there, which again, another an hour conversation can be held about him. But I think I will say I'm happy for Matt Freeze. A year ago I was able to intern for a newspaper up there in New York, and every time I was able to talk to Matt, he was super nice, and glad to see him get his flowers. But yeah, honestly, I just hope the team can just make the country proud. It's a bit of a weird time in terms of culturally, politically. We need something to unite the citizens of America together. So hopefully they can go and play some good football and show the world that Americans can play footy. But yeah, hopefully that midfield holds up. But I am surprised about Diego Luna though. I was,
Yeah.
he's in a couple of commercials, and I mean, that doesn't mean he'll make it, but I was just shocked that he wasn't taken. But yeah, other than that, hopefully they can do well.
It's funny you mentioned Luna. Jose, our friend Mandy, posted on Twitter earlier today. She says, I think they're editing Luna out of these commercials now
Oh
after all
man,
the backlash. It's unfortunate. And that
yeah,
was the first thing I thought of. Was like, how can you advertise this team? And if you're going to do that, it has to be someone that's a lock, a guaranteed to make the roster, because it just looks bad otherwise. But Jose, again, I mentioned briefly, 4 former Union and Academy players and first team players, rather, have made the U.S. men's national team. Not Matt Turner. I'm sorry, Matt Freese, Brendan Aronson, Wes McKenzie, and I'm missing one, Austin Trusty. I'm sorry, Austin Trusty. So 4 players from the Union Academy who've made the U.S. men's national team. Jose, your thoughts on the team and your thoughts on seeing those 4 names out there?
I think this is the most uh, incredible thing to happen to the
Yeah.
Philadelphia Union. I think it's a vote of another vote of confidence. Sure, you had 2 players in an Olympic roster last time around, which was incredible considering that roster has to be so tight and compact because
Mm-hmm.
of the regulations for Olympic ball. So to see 4 players take over the 26 rosters, 4 out of the 26 being Union players or Union Academy players or the pathway, whatever you want to call it, is fantastic.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. I don't have a lot of hope, unfortunately, for this squad. I hope that they do well. I worry, unfortunately, that this is a team that's going to unfortunately underperform
Mm.
when it matters most, which is now because they're hosting the vast majority of the games. And worried that it's not going to have the same impact 94 did in the United States. Obviously, a completely different scene because MLS soccer exists, but a good performance would really give a jolt the way that, I don't know, I still hear non-soccer sickos talk about the Tim Howard performance at the 2014 World Cup
Yeah.
from time to time, right? So like if that's stuck, I hope that there's a moment that really, really sticks and keeps people talking well beyond the years that, immediate after.
Well, it's funny. I saw a tweet earlier today where it's like, um, University of Indiana won the national championship. The Knicks made the final, which is just crazy to me. Sam Darnold won the Super Bowl, and then the last comment on that tweet was like, "You should text your crush. Go for that dream job. Go like you never know what's going to happen." So maybe the U.S. men's national team will surprise us all. But no, I think it's great from a union perspective. You're trying to sell yourself as the top academy in North America and where you want to be if you're a young player. Kevin Sullivan obviously putting the academy on the map and showing exactly the talent that comes out of the area, but not even the academy, but like these are local players for us, Jose. Austin Trusty, I'm pretty sure one of my friends grew up with his family nearby. I think it was in Mount Laurel. Brendan Aronson, obviously Medford Messi. I'm not sure where McKenzie's from. I forget now off the top of my head. Mark McKenzie. I think he might be from Delaware, or I think that's Matt
Mm,
Freese is from Delaware. I think no, Freese is from Pennsylvania, I believe, from Wayne, PA. And then I think Mackenzie's the one from Delaware. But either way, very local for us. So it's cool from a personal standpoint, seeing people who literally grew up in your backyard. And obviously you got to see them in person as well. So I'm very excited for them. In terms of what you said, Alex, with how the city is handling things, I think Jose, you probably know more than me, but you also probably agree as well. Philadelphia has done a fantastic job with getting things to be fan centric, maybe fan favorite. I know obviously the issue up in North Jersey with how much the prices were going to be for the trains and everything like that has been a big topic of conversation. But I mean, Jose, would you think that overall the Philadelphia committee has done well preparing the city and thinking of the fans first in this?
they're certainly getting the accolades and as the kids say, flowers from people because they've been sort of the star child of it all. So
Yeah.
yeah, I would wholeheartedly agree that that's the case. And even sorry to hear, Alex, about your credential issues, but and today walking to pick up my credentials for the tournament, just seeing all the signage that had to be covered that is now officially covered at the stadium, it's starting to feel real. And again, just Philadelphia has kind of nailed how to do it, and I would not be surprised if it ever comes back here, or if there's an idea of doing maybe a specialty tournament, like who knows, maybe a maybe some sort of one-off tournament happens here of these intercontinental ones, rather than sending it to Saudi Arabia. Maybe it comes to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, because they get transportation right, they get housing right, and they get a stadium that can fit a good amount of people all at once.
70-some thousand, right? The link
70-some thousand, yeah, and that's pretty good. Is it the biggest? Absolutely not. But the fact is that there's access to an airport, hotels, and transportation that's public at a reasonable rate. I think Philadelphia has sort of nailed it.
Yeah, and we even saw a glimpse of this, Jose, probably about, I don't know, 7 years ago with the NFL draft being in Philly as well. I mean, we just know how to host a party. I say that as somebody who lives, 15 minutes east of Philly, and maybe a little biased, but we do well, and I'm really happy to see that we have done such a good job preparing. And honestly, I was at Citizens Bank Park the other day. I saw the link. I'm like, yeah, there's all the signs up. It does feel real for now. And then we're going into CVS's and Walmarts and rally houses, and you're seeing all the merchandise now being sold in any like little corner you can possibly find, any store you can find out here. So it's exciting. It feels real, and I know I'll be walking around those tailgates on June 18th. I think it is June 19th is the France-Haiti game. I'm going to get there early, walk around the stadiums, have a good time. So either way, though, it's an hour conversation now, Alex. We could probably keep you for another 2 hours at least, if not more. Always appreciate you joining us, taking time out of your busy schedule to hop on. But again, anything that you want to plug, take it away. Your final thought here.
Yeah, so honestly, same old. You can find most of my work on Twitter. Or X. I usually post it, or if not, you can go to Inter Heron, which is one of the fan-sided blogs about Inter Miami, where I'm usually posting post-match player ratings and giving my thoughts there. Unfortunately, my analysis hasn't been as I haven't been able to put out full-blown analysis pieces because I'm so busy with my university work, but I still cover the team. Player ratings and still, fun blurbs and whatnot. I'm always at the games, giving you boots on the ground journalism. So yeah, if you want to see any of my work, just, hit up my Twitter and all of it's there.
Yeah, I'll actually put your Twitter on. Thank you for reminding me perfectly. _1998. I almost forgot. Thank you so much. And obviously, we'll have to talk some WNBA. See, with your Marina Mabry. We have to have a conversation with that soon.
We can go another hour with that, bro.
Honestly, I talk Jose and all their ears off. I had a Sophie Cunningham shirt on my post-game show this past one. I just love the W. But Jose, I know again, World Cup coming up. Anything you're preparing before you get out there at the link?
June 27th is my sole paid assignment for MLS, but should more MLS players or more stories come up, I'm available as the East Coast guy to go up and down should they need me. But just I apply to as many games as possible. We'll see if I get in, but I know for a fact I'll be there on the 27th. So not much, man. Just kind of trying to rest, and it's busy season for us in the nonprofit world with the end of the fiscal year. So probably gonna focus on the full-time gig a little bit more than usual.
Yeah, I could say the same. In the HR world, the summer's time is always trouble time out in the state of Maryland. So we've already been seeing an uptick in cases. I'm like, oh God, here we go. And which is great, honestly, because we have a break until July 22nd, our next Union game. But either way, this is Across the Pitch on the AAT Sports Network. Typically, we do a post-game show after every single Uni match, but obviously we like to throw little tidbits here or there. Of course, we have to talk to Alex at least once, if not twice per season. So I'll be back on at the end of the year. If they win MLS Cup again, maybe we'll have you on after that. We'll see what happens. But thank you so much for your time today, Alex, Jose, as well. Thank you. And hopefully everybody enjoyed the show. Have a great night and a great rest of your week.